Hello viewers and welcome to 284 News. We're coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands. I am Ron Grant.
Viewers, I'm Kamal Haynes.
Now 2021 has been by far one of the most historic years, not only for us here in the BVI, but across the region and on the international scene as well. From a string of murders and of course COVID deaths that have left our communities in mourning to major drug busts, the show-stopping COI that has taken our territory and its leaders on the world stage, teachers locally staging sick-outs, farmers and fishers folk stimulus packages, and local athletes representing us well on the Olympics, and so much more. We are bringing to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands the top stories of 2021. Kamal, a lot has taken place, but we have not forgotten, and we're bringing it to the public live and direct.
Indeed, and for those persons who may say, okay, well, how come we didn't have this on your top on your list? But so much happened in 2021 that we even had to, as opposed to doing the usual top 15 or top 10, we had to categorize it according to the, what was taking place. Obviously, we would have had a lot of the COI occurring this year, a lot of unfortunate deaths, a lot of crime-related stuff, but we also had some good stuff happening as well.
Of course.
And what we're trying to incorporate in this production is basically to, basically round it up all in one and basically paint somewhat of a good picture to remind those persons who probably would have forgotten some of the stuff that happened earlier this year and that happened in 2021.
Most definitely. Viewers, before we begin, I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much, not only our viewers locally, but across the region and on the international scene for sticking with 284 Media throughout the year. Your love and support for us all here and the entire team means a great deal to us. It is an honor and privilege to be bringing you not only our daily newscasts and content, making sure that you're witnessing history in the making, but really keeping you entertained. And now we begin with the top 10 crime-related stories. Homicide, murder, suicide, and unclassified deaths continue to rock the BVI in 2021. Now, in the early months of the 2021 year, a series of deaths rocked the BVI, some classified as homicides, while officials struggle to classify others. The majority of these incidents remain unsolved. Of course, we are touching on Walid Kishore, the body of a man found floating in the vicinity of the Valerie O. Thomas Community Center in Seaports Bay on Friday, February 19th, 2021, around 8:30 a.m., was identified as the 40-year-old Walid Kishore, a Brazilian who resided in Manuel Reef, Tortola. Now, Kishore was found with his hands and feet bound together, and his death is being treated as a homicide. In addition to that, Earl Bob Hodge, co-owner of L&B Stables in popular Virgin Islands, horseman and businessman across the BVI and USVI, Caribbean and U.S. mainland, was shot and killed at his home in Hannah's Estate around 8 p.m. on the night of Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Hodge was later laid to rest on Saturday, March 20th, 2021. In addition to that, the very tragic death, Frandy Martin Jr., initial investigations indicated that sometime after 6:15 p.m. on October 16th, two motor vessels collided in the waters outside of Prospect Reef. On board the 40-foot boat with the name Blue Bioa was a captain and 4 passengers, while on board the other, a 35-foot contender with the name Yia, was a captain and 2 passengers. Now, this incident claimed the life of well-known musician, the one and only Frandy Martin Jr., while seriously injuring a male and a female. Of the 5 on board the Blue Buaya, 2 minors were treated and discharged, and a female received treatment. The individual who was arrested in relation to the fatal boat accident was since released from police custody pending further investigation. Kamal, I want to start with Mr. Hodge, Bob Earl Hodge, a stalwart horseman, a very popular businessman, definitely taken the BVI by storm. His death really crippled the community, in addition to really causing quite a stir as it pertains to the sport of horse racing. And I know you're going to get to some more, but it was quite a tragedy when we lost Mr. Hodge. In addition to that, Frandy Martin, the boating accident, which is the most recent, really, again, it took us by storm.
Indeed, and in terms of Mr. Hodge's death, I think that was one of the first deaths of 2021.
Yes.
As you said, it impacted the community, the BVI community, very much so, and also to what I would say is impacted, as you said, the horse racing fraternity, because based off the conversations I would have had with the president in 2020,
yes,
there were major plans to basically transform the horse racing fraternity here in the BVI, transform horse racing in itself to make it more somewhat more investable, and for persons to be able to invest in it and also make a lot of money, and also revive the economy of the BVI in a new way, and as seen in USVA.
Him and his wife were absolutely key players as it pertains to horse racing, really investing a lot of money in the sport.
Indeed, and totally agreeable, and that's why you know, that would have been so shocking for so many, and impactful for the others as well, on the basis that, you know, it takes somewhat of the life out of the sport. Yeah. And we would get to another person on this list also too, who would have been obviously played a pivotal role in horse racing in the BVI, as well as business, because they're both businessmen as well as you know, as apart from the horse racing fraternity, they're also business people. They would have been putting money in families' pockets, etc. And, you know, a loss of a life that provides, it's a big loss.
Absolutely.
And viewers, what we did too in terms of this particular list, we didn't just want to flood the top 10 with murders, because we do know the majority of the time when it comes to news, the top news are always the bad news, you know. But what we wanted to do as well, this top news in terms of the top 10, what they decided to do, there were some major cocaine drug busts in the territory this year, on land and also offline in terms of on sea. What we would have seen this year was nearly 4,000 pounds of cocaine, which was valued approximately $51 million, was seized by the United States Coast Guard just off the shores of Anegada in August. Well, this was confirmed in a news release issued by the U.S. Coast Guard, 7th District, Puerto Rico. And Ron, this would have made somewhat of big news then, because it was $51 million, and that was off the cusp of another one we will get on the list here shortly. We don't want to really reveal it as yet, but according to the release during the routine patrol, that which happened in August 27th of this year, the Coast Guard cutter Richard Iterage responded to the sighting of a suspect go-fast vessel in waters northeast of the British Virgin Islands, and that was obviously surrounding the near vicinity of Anegada. So in total, the crew of cutter Richard Iterage recovered a total of 57 bales that tested positive for the COVID-19. Sorry, tested positive for cocaine. And in terms of this now, Ron, we see somewhat since the advent of COVID-19. That's why I had it so close to my tongue. Since the advent of COVID-19, we would have seen somewhat of a lot of drug busts in the territory, and that would have happened as a result of the closure of borders. That directly had an impact on the BVI and crime in the BVI in more ways than one.
And I don't think many persons understand that effect, and the third world, as persons would call it, the underground world. Having our borders closed really caused a problem as it pertains to that particular lifestyle and industry. Indeed,
because what happens then is, obviously in reality, there are more eyes where eyes weren't before.
Yes.
And obviously with the BVI borders being so porous, you know, obviously on a normal given day, there'd be so much activity that so many things would slip by. But obviously, with the borders closed, and at that particular time, there was basically stating no movement unless approved. So therefore, once the police professionals and the customs professional would have seen any movement on the sea, all eyes would have been on that vessel, whether persons would have been aware or not. And that's what would have probably led, because obviously I'm only basically speaking on what I believe would have transpired in terms of what would have led to so many of these drugs being detected. Not to say there are probably a lot that are undetected,
Right,
but in
course.
terms of the stagnant nature of the border at that particular point, up until when the borders in April, when there was reapproval of seaports for international travel. Up until that point, we had also the British Coast Guard here in the BVI basically patrolling the seas, and that would have heightened the security here in the BVI, where basically they would have had technology to be able to detect stuff that local authorities may not have been at that time. I'm not sure if whether customs would have upgraded certain stuff since then, but we do know when it comes to British intelligence and those equipments and those, those ships and stuff, they have a lot of technologies that obviously a lot of the public want to be privy to for obvious reasons. So that is a major factor that would have contributed to what we would have seen so far in terms of the drug buses in the BVI and some of the other crime-related stuff that we may not have mentioned, but I'm sure we will get to some of that.
Indeed, and now we go on to number 7. Jamez Stout, a 31-year-old Virgin Islander and a U.S. Army veteran, was fatally shot early Saturday, December 11th at the Crystals nightclub. Stout, a U.S. Army veteran, served in Afghanistan until earlier this year. He had worked at CCT Global Communications for 8 years and played in the BVI Basketball Federation District. He was a well-known tattoo artist, a son, a brother, a friend, and a father of one. My classmate Jamez Stout was unfortunately and really too early taken from us. I do not think the community has grappled with that yet. He is to be laid to rest in the coming weeks, but it definitely has left an uncomfortable taste in our mouths and our spirits, and we do want to take this opportunity not only to extend condolences once again to his family and the community who is still mourning. Gun violence continues to plague our society, and one of the unfortunate things, Kamal, is it is taking our kings, and we're not understanding that. I don't think we're getting it through our heads, that it's taking our kings, our young kings, and our community will not be better for it, because at the end of the day, our men are not in a position to lead because their lives are being taken by gun violence.
Indeed, and obviously this news is still fresh.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have been privy to know him personally, but obviously through working here at CCT and hearing the different comments and stuff and seeing the social media pages and stuff, he was somewhat of a good energy. A lot of persons would have been, basically relaying that message, even prior to his demise. What that does though, because as you said, you mentioned something very critical that persons tend to overlook. What was taken away was not only the son, not only a brother, but a father, which means basically a young child now have to grow up and without a life of knowing his father. And that's very important, because what we see in today's society, even dating back decades ago, that a father figure is extremely important. Not to say that the child will not have a father figure, because I'm sure there are a lot of persons that will step up and stuff. But to take a life, 5 seconds changes. Absolutely. 5 seconds is a lot. I have watched in the past several different documentaries of persons who would have been incarcerated, and 5 seconds caused them a lifetime of imprisonment, basically. And sometimes it just takes us to say, okay, well, no, let's walk away. Tomorrow's another day. Let's, back in the old time days, or back in the 80s, whatever the case is, there was a more so a fist fight. You if you want to get out your anger, you put up your fist, and that what you basically would have used. Most persons live to see another day after a fist fight. But as we see in today's society now,
it's changed.
I'm not speaking on what happened in that particular incident because I don't know, but I'm just saying people are more resorting to a quicker way of, or a more easier way of doing stuff.
Very true.
And some people call it cowardly as well too, because it takes a real man to fight with a hand as opposed to just pulling a gun and killing someone.
And now we go on to number 6. Following the May 30th stabbing of Nikhil Chambers at the Balsam Gut Prison, police charge 5 inmates in relation to Chambers' stabbing death. Investigations conducted by the members of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, a major crime team, led to the arrest of Andreas Norford, Estardo Jefferson, John J. Christopher, Dejon Hodge, and Kareem Durant. Additionally, the 2 senior prison officers who were on duty during the stabbing incident at Her Majesty's Prison have been placed on administrative leave pending further investigation.
And Ron, this was another big story of 2021. I mean, when it happened, I mean, before this, we would have been seeing somewhat of different prison photos circulating across social media, making it seem as though, you know, there's no
law and order
at the facility. I mean, obviously, since this incident, you know, that would have basically all those privileges would have been taken away. But it would have, I guess, sparked somewhat of a reaction from the public to basically try to find out what was going on in the facility that would have led to a death while, you know, basically being in prison. It sent waves throughout the territory. I could remember when the news did break. You know, a lot of persons were questioning, you know, what would have led to such. Thankfully, through to the investigations, they were able to apprehend and charge a number of persons in relation to it. I would have seen as well, as you would have mentioned, just no prison officers were basically charged as well. I guess has something to do with duty or whatever. But the cases, I'm not aware of that information, so I can't speak on it factually. But it would have, and that's why we definitely placed it in the list, because it would have brought a lot of questions, and it was big news in the territory at that particular time. Well, viewers, we move to another major cocaine drug bust which happened in January this year, where members of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force made another major drug bust in January, seizing approximately 200 kilograms of cocaine on the main island of Tortola. Ron, I'm sure you would have remembered this news when it was first brought. But the drugs were seized in an early morning police operation on Tuesday, January 19th. And a media statement from the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force said police recovered the bulk of the drugs in a vehicle they intercepted in Hodges Creek. What the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force said at that time, and I quote, "Well, the driver of the vehicle made the escape, but a total of 5 bales weighing in excess of 150 kilos were recovered in the vehicle. A vessel connected to the drug seizure was also located in the Brandywine Bay area and seized by officer. Well, to this date, 3 persons have been charged in connection to the drug bust, but they are Sergeant Troy St. Helen of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, 28-year-old Sean Massicott of East End, and Harrigan Estate resident Devon Bedford. Ron, this was another one that would have sparked waves through the territory. Obviously, last year we had one of the biggest drug busts in the history of the BVI, and then as the year turned into January, this would have happened. And it goes back to speak about what I mentioned earlier in terms of the closure of the borders.
Yes.
You know, therefore, detection levels basically is heightened, security levels is heightened, and what it does then, you know, with COVID and the pandemic, all of that stopping the movement of a lot of different things, it results in increasing crime.
One of the things, Kamal, that these drug busts have indicated is really and truly how much work we have to do as it pertains to law enforcement. Many of the persons arrested have been officers and directly connected with the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, and I think that has been also a major issue in 2021, really seeing law and order have to be taken into account and in place within one of the, if not the highest agency within the BVI. Governor Ranking and former Governor, Governor Ranking, yes, and former Governor Augustus Jasper really spoke to, you know, locking down and clearing out the police force. We see where Commissioner Mark Collins and former Commissioner Matthews, I think Matthews perhaps didn't do enough, or we didn't speak about it, and I think it's important for us to bring these matters to the forefront, not painting the force as though it's perfect, but really trying our best to wean out anything that could affect and break down the level of transparency and community belief in the public from the law enforcement aspect.
And you touched on the whole aspect of the law enforcement. As you would have seen here in this particular story, an officer was charged in relation to this. You know, what do you usually hear on a normal basis? A lot of persons on the community level would basically state they don't trust certain police officers. You know, they don't have a trust in the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force because certain officers may be like this way or that way. But what I can say is since Commissioner Collins came into came into office as the new Commissioner of Police of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, he has been very strict.
I agree.
With his not only protocols but his way of life in terms of how police officers should basically conduct themselves. Since he would have got in, he would have done somewhat of a number of implemented somewhat of new measures using some UK standards to help help police the police force basically. And then you would have seen a number of officers interdicted basically following pending investigations. He's listening to the community, he's listening to the concerns, he's listening to some of the officers' queries, and he's making the necessary changes basically to ensure that officers are accountable, to ensure that officers do what they're supposed to do.
I agree.
And to make the force a better place, because what it ultimately does is when you basically implement new standards for in any organization, including the police force, what it does then, persons then have to act accordingly, and it helps the community in the whole, because then trust is regained. So once people see, for example, police officers are being arrested, police officers are held to account for an action, they're suspended, whatever the case is, pay is docked, then they regain trust in the process, they regain trust in the system, and that's what has been happening since Commissioner Collins would have came into force so far. Well, viewers, moving on to our list where we come to number 4. This one was very debatable, because this was one of the, for layman's term, this was one of the craziest acts that the BVI would have seen in a long time. And this, viewers, what I'm speaking about is the broad daylight shooting of Vincentian national Deverson Benny Williams. Deverson Williams was a 38-year-old Long Trench resident who was shot and killed in broad daylight on March 16th while in his vehicle in the Fish Bay vicinity. Well, according to police reports, Williams was pronounced dead at the scene after sustaining several gunshot wounds to his body while in his vehicle in the Fish Bay area around 3:45 p.m. Well, his vehicle and other nearby vehicles also sustained damage, as well as the International Motors building. Ron, well, this was what some would term as a freak act, on the basis that it's something that the BVI and most Caribbean countries don't normally, unless you're talking about where crime is high, like Jamaica, for example, but in nature it's a little secret. You don't usually see these sort of events happening. And the unfortunate thing about this, in addition to the killing, which was unfortunate, was the fact that the videos and the visuals which were circulated afterwards. I was all the way in Barbados at the time of this incident, and I would have had first-hand sight of the vehicle,
right,
of the body while it was basically still in position, of driver's position. And then recently we would have seen somewhat of a surveillance footage where we would have seen what would have transpired in terms of obviously you can't see the faces of the persons, but you would have seen the heavy artillery.
Absolutely.
You would have seen the bullets licking through the vehicle and ricocheting off the vehicle and going to the other vehicles. I mean, what some persons would term this would be like a senseless act.
Absolutely, and one of the things that makes it so senseless, of course you're taking a life, but you're endangering an entire community. That is probably one of the busiest business areas. There's a gas station, there's a car dealership. Fish Bay is very active. You had persons driving.
Right behind the vehicle.
Correct. You have persons driving, persons walking, pedestrians. And I think that event really began to struck fear in the lives of BVI Islanders, because it just, came to the realization, if you could do this in broad daylight, then what else can you do? Indeed,
and it goes back to, you see, everything has somewhat of a connection.
Absolutely.
And but viewers, we go to number 3, where we obviously speak on the death of 19-year-old Maya Marcano. She would be our number 3, because that would have impacted not only the BVI, but that would have gone international in terms of the state of Florida, and impacted other persons. But viewers, this was last seen around 5 p.m. on Friday. Miss Marcano was last seen around 5 p.m. on Friday, September 24th at the Arden Villas apartment on Arden Villas Boulevard, where she lived and worked in the leasing office near the University of Central Florida in Orlando. granddaughter of VI's Letty Hodge, Maya was well known in the BVI and the United States Virgin Islands. She also formerly contested in the Prince and Princess show back in 2012, arising as a crowd favorite. Marcano had planned to fly to Fort Lauderdale that evening to visit her family members, but missed her flight. This was obviously according to reports. Well, after a week-long search for Maya, members of the Orange County Sheriff's Emergency Response Team found her body around 10:45 a.m. Saturday, October 2nd, where Sheriff John Mina said, while searching a wooded area near the timber scan on the Lake Apartments, approximately 18 miles west of her home, a purse with her identification was located near the body. Well, cell phone records indicated Armando Manuel Calabero, a person of interest in the case who was found dead of an apparent suicide on September 27, was in or near the apartments for about 20 minutes between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. the evening Marcano was reported missing, according to the sheriff. Well, following Maya's tragic death, her family created a foundation in her honor to ensure that others just like her were not caught in similar circumstances. Well, 2 petitions were created following her death. The first, ensure Arden Villas enact proper safety measures in light of Marcano's murder, which to date has over 94,000 signatures. And the second, I support Maya's law, which has over 36,000 signatures. Well, the new legislation, Maya's law, was basically filed in the state of Florida last month to protect tenants. It is a proposed bipartisan legislation that aims to ensure an elevated expectancy of residential security and personal safety on residential properties in the state of Florida. Well, as a result, strict governance on the implementation of higher levels of background checks and limitations on the use of master keys by employees will ensure protection of the tenants and the strengthening of the relationships between landlords and tenants.
Absolutely. We are still heartbroken by the Mia Marcano story. A local Virgin Islander absolutely has broken our hearts. But continuing on, a 67-year-old Catherine Pickering, a Virgin Islander, was fatally shot during a robbery on April 18, 2021 at her residence in Paraquita Bay, Tortola. She was allegedly shot in the head and chest with an AK-47 assault rifle. Now, 24-year-old Shamar Richardson of Jean Hill was officially charged for his involvement in the robbery-turned-murder of Catherine Pickering, while 4 other persons were arrested in connection with the murder. Truly, truly heartbreaking, losing a Virgin Islander, hardworking Virgin Islander who contributed significantly to the prison system, worked at the prison, an avid Christian, businesswoman, a mother, a wife, a sister and friend, was senselessly taken away from her family. And again, this goes back to the situation where we're doing something wrong. We're absolutely doing something wrong as it pertains to our young men. Absolutely one of the most heartbreaking stories of 2021.
And topping our list would have been the shooting death of, well, it was a double murder-suicide on the day of February 5th. That was of Rodney Miley Simmons, and senior of Threadfall, and Andrew Scarrett of Carrot Bay. They were both found dead at separate locations on February 5th. Well, according to the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, Simmons was found and pronounced dead at his home in Threadfalls, while the body of Scarrett was found and pronounced dead at his home in Carrot Bay. Well, at the time of the announcement, suspicions loomed as to what exactly led to the death of both men, and many in this community were calling it a crime of passion. Well, police later confirmed that Simmons was murdered and his attacker had subsequently died. Well, Ron, this was our number 1 story in terms of we spoke about Mr. Hodge in terms of his impact on horse racing and business. We know Mr. Simmons would have been the core proprietor of the Boys Gas Station, as well as a pivotal businessman and a horse fanatic, basically, in terms of that industry. So that would have been a very big loss for the BVI and the USVI as well.
Absolutely agree. Viewers, we are heading on to topical issues, but before we get to that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. You are watching 284 Media's Top 2021 News Year in Review.
You value traditions.
Today.
You value music. You value education. Family.
I love you.
Service.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Love. Life. At Popular, we're committed to you and everything our community values. for the things you value the most. Count on us. Popular.
The wait is over. CCT Fire is here. Experience ultra-fast downloads, seamless streaming, and even more reliable connectivity on an all-new fire-blazing super-fast CCT Fiber network. CCT Fire. Bring it home and upgrade today.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works. Viewers, welcome back and thank you so much for sticking with us. We are continuing on topical issues. Number 4, during the 8th sitting of the 3rd session of the 4th House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands on April 29th, the Foy-led administration passed a bill entitled Retiring Allowances Legislative Services Amendment Act 2021. Now, the bill Retiring Allowances Legislative Services Amendment Act 2021 allowed for no public consultations. The amendment now significantly raised legislators' retirement salary as follows. In addition to retiring allowances as specified in subsection, persons serving for the following parliamentary terms shall be paid salaries as follows. A person who has served only one full parliamentary term shall only be paid 2 years' salary. A person who has served 2 full parliamentary terms shall be paid 1 year's salary. A person who has served 3 full terms shall be paid 2 years' salary, or a person who has served for 5 or more parliamentary terms shall be paid 3 years' salary. Now, the present law stated that in order to receive retirement for a legislator, you must have served more than 5 years, which is 2 terms, consecutively. This new amendment to the bill allows legislators who serve at minimum 1 term, 4 years, to receive 2 years' salary in addition to the ex gratia payment. Now, this move by the Foy administration really led to a protest among residents, and many calling for this to be rescinded, which did not happen. Many were saying wrong timing, it's unfair, and if our NHI services are good for us, it's good for them.
Indeed, that was one of the topical issues that did happen
Yes.
in the BVI. Viewers, we move to number 3 in terms of the topic of political advisors. That was a very big topic this year. We're in July 5th and 8th, the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands, in a statement, revealed that government had considered and waived the tender process for government ministers, including junior ministers, to have political advisors at a cap of $120,000 per annum. While the Premier of the Virgin Islands, Honorable Andrew A. Foy, was listed to have up to 3 political advisors, while all additional 4 cabinet members and 2 junior ministers will each have 1 political advisor of their choice. Well, according to calculations at the time, the total per annum for government political advisors were spewed around the territory as being $1.08 million. Well, Premier Foy, in a subsequent media release at a statement, basically he was linking some of the misfortunes from the past governments as part of the reason for having ministerial political advisors. He said that the initiative will not cost the taxpayers any additional money and will not amount to the $1 million figure as suggested by many persons, including the opposition leader at the time, Marlon Penn. Premier Foy made a statement during a lengthy speech on Monday, July 26, as he responded on a controversial topic which has so far resulted at that time in public backlash. And the Premier said that the role of ministerial political advisors at that time would not create any expense for either government or taxpayers, as the funds were ordinarily budgeted for as government consultants. Ron, let me go back to this particular moment. During that time, it was so much other stuff going on. I think the Willock stuff was already going on, which we will get to shortly. But at that time, then to put that statement out there, it created a huge uproar in the BVI at that time.
And that was the problem. I think many persons were saying there are so many other matters that need to be addressed. Why now?
Exactly. And that would have played a major role in some of the protests, whether it be online, etc., regarding that particular topic.
Indeed, we continue on in a continued effort to have their voices heard. we go to the primary and secondary school teachers in the Virgin Islands this year staged a sick-out across the territory. On Friday, October 29th, primary school teachers followed their colleagues from the Elmore Stout High School and staged a sick-out. A number of primary schools were affected, such as Althea Scatliff, Joyce Samuel, Willard Wheatley, Francis Lettsam, Ivan Dawson, and others. On October 27th, more than half of the teachers at the Elmore Stout High School junior campus called in sick, causing the Ministry of Education to call off school for October 27th, 2021, which was followed by senior teachers calling in sick despite classes being online. Kamal, this took many persons by surprise, but obviously there are mounting frustrations as it pertains to the education system and the handling of matters, and I think this was a representation of teachers just saying we've had enough and we need our voices to be heard. I think their message was loud and clear, and we continue to wish them much success.
Indeed, and that would have came off the backdrop. I think prior to that, there was an announcement of a number of teachers actually leaving the service, you know.
Yes, correct.
And then we would have seen some of other situations where different schools, especially Yost Van Dyke Primary School, there was some situation, there was some issues there at the school.
Situation, yeah.
And teachers initially protested at that school for the conditions which the minister later addressed. But at the time, you know, obviously the teacher topic in the BVI during the year 2021 was a big topic. We saw a lot of ups and downs from the school system. You know, the ups obviously would have been the fact that they would have been able to coexist during the COVID-19. But the downs would have been, you know, teachers just not feeling like they're in an environment where they're appreciated.
Correct.
You know, they feel unappreciated in all aspects, whether it be from the pay, whether it be from how the executive persons treat them. You know, they feel like they're not, like their worth is not being appreciated, and hopefully into 2022 we would have seen a number of funds being allocated in the 2022 budget to deal with a lot of these issues in school, whether it be structures, whether it be the physical structures, or whether it would be internally. There are a lot of plans to basically, according to the minister and Premier Foy, you know, during his budget, he would have allocated a lot of funds to hopefully deal with these issues going forward. Well, viewers, topping the number one topical issue list here, as we would further delve into in our other category, is the House of Assembly protests, which happened following the move by government to basically pay the legal fees of Julian Willock, the Speaker of the House of Assembly. This tops the list for several reasons because, as we would explain during our COI topic, you would see exactly, we had so many other stuff going on. We spoke about the political advisors, we spoke about teachers protesting, we spoke about so many other things, allocating funds and talking about increasing the financing of the salaries of backbenchers to match those persons in power. And yet, you know, so many stuff going on, but yet the government choosing to fund these particular initiatives sparked, you know, a lot of debate, and sparked a lot of persons were angered by it. A lot of persons had a lot to say about it. Some behind closed doors, others decided to be spoken about it. But ultimately, those actions would have resulted in persons coming out to the House of Assembly, whereas the Premier would have been passing a motion in the House of Assembly to basically, initially, don't get it twisted, because the reality is initially the original motion was to pass a motion to exempt the Speaker of the House of Assembly from having to pay the fees. After the protest happened, and that's why it's essential for people to speak up and not be always laid back about stuff and relying on social media. Come out in person, speak up, because there was a petition was created. A lot of persons signed the petition. A lot of persons came out, more than a lot of persons expected at the House of Assembly. And it ended up basically delaying the process where the House of Assembly was supposed to start that particular motion. I think it was late early morning, and it happened up until the next day. And then the Premier came out with a new motion where he would have said, okay, all right, I'm not going to move the motion to directly exempt him. I'm going to move a motion to create somewhat of a committee that deliberates three options, basically to decide whether, you know, he was acted within his capacity as Speaker of the House of Assembly, then to be able to be exempted. And there were, and obviously, two of the three options favored basically exempting Willock, well, the other one would have said, okay, well, he probably did not act within capacity without the necessary approvals, and therefore, as a result, will have to basically pay the revised, I think it's $104,000 legal bill now that he would have to pay as a private citizen if the committee comes back with a verdict that says, well, he is at fault for that. Well, viewers, we have so much more coming up, a lot of different topics, whether from COI to sports. But before we get to that good stuff, viewers, we'll take a quick commercial break.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a brand new season of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, a show poised to help guide modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen. It doesn't always involve suits and, bow ties, but raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men. This season, I'm taking you on an entirely different journey, from chefs to dancers, philanthropists, communications specialists, and much more. I'm heading outside in the field to share the journey of some of the BVI's best and brightest men. From East End to West End, Borjingara, Jackson Lake, not forgetting Anigata. Our Virgin Islands gentlemen are doing the damn thing, and I'm so proud. Get ready to reason, reflect, and redirect. We are the movers and shakers of this generation, and we ain't afraid to show it. The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, Season 3 by yours truly, Ron Grant, raising a generation of greatness.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Well, welcome back, viewers. Thank you for sticking with us here at 284 Media, 284 News, viewers. We're here to the topic of the Commission of Inquiry,
Yes.
a very big topic in the BVI in the year of 2021. Well, viewers, following reports that his office received numerous complaints regarding lack of transparency in government, Governor at the time, Augustus Jasper, announced prior to his departure from the BVI that he had decided to issue a Commission of Inquiry in accordance to the BVI's Commission of Inquiry Act. Jasper made the announcement via Facebook on January 18th and followed up with a press conference just a few days later to brief the public on his decision. Take a listen.
On Monday, the 18th of January, people will be aware that I announced my decision to issue a Commission of Inquiry in the British Virgin Islands. This was, without doubt, a truly difficult decision to make, but a very necessary one, based on the great number of current concerns and allegations put to me by members of the community, the public service, the media, the businesses, and others. Over the recent months, the people of BVI have sent a clear message. They want more transparency, more accountability, and a higher standard of governance, and they want it now. To stand up and say this took great strength and is a testament to the character and democracy of the British Virgin Islands. I would like to take a moment to recognise that fact and thank all of those members of the community who had the courage to come forward in their desire for wanting better for this territory. As I said on Monday, after careful consideration with colleagues in the Governor's Group, including the Deputy Governor, the Auditor General, the Police Commissioner, the Registrar of Interests and others, it's become increasingly clear that the cumulative scope and severity of these concerns is beyond the capacity of our local institutions. Many of these institutions have done commendable work to date, and some have tried to look into the matters raised on Monday, but have been unable to access the information required to do so. They are hindered without certain laws and frameworks in place, and so the people's concerns persist. As Governor, it is my duty to support the people and to uphold the peace, order, and good governance of the territory. This is made clear in the Constitution, and I've made an oath to perform that duty to the best of my ability.
Well, viewers, that was the former governor of the British Virgin Islands, Augustus Jasper. Ron, obviously that announcement would have sparked what we would have enjoyed for the year of 2021, where we would have seen a number of different topical issues, a number of questionable information revealed to the public, where if not for the COI, we would not have had privilege to that information. And that leads to the next topic of the COI, Ron, of the Fishers and Farmers stimulus. But before we get to what unfolded from the COI, I'm sure that many of you viewers would have remembered the leaked farmer and fishers stimulus document, which was circulated across the territory sometime back in May. Well, the document showed at the time persons receiving amounts ranging from $4,500 to as high as $22,500, and it further detailed fisher folks getting amounts largely in the sum of $9,000, $15,000, and some even $20,000, while farmers allegedly received amounts totaling $13,500 and others $22,500. Now, when combined, the total amount allegedly paid out between the two lists combined over $3.2 million. Or Premier Minister of Finance Andrew Foy took to social media following the leaked document and immediately pointed out several inaccuracies of the document, stating that it was incomplete, it raised many red flags, etc., etc., etc. So now fast forward to less than a month later, when an audit report submitted by the Auditor General, Sonia Webster, revealed that approximately 49% of the monies paid out in the Farmer Stimulus Grant Program, which totaled more than $1.4 million, was awarded to persons who were not registered in the agriculture database of registered farmers. When her statements were delivered during one of her many hearings of the COI, where she said that the initial budget for the overall program was $3.5 million, a budget she said that was exceeded and amounted to $5.140 million. The commissioner's attorney, Bala Ruat, gave details on that audit report. Viewers, take a listen.
This is the first finding you make in relation to farmers' stimulus grants. And it is that 49% of the amount paid in farmers' stimulus grants, totaling $1,437,000, was awarded to persons who were not recorded in the agriculture database of registered farmers.
Webster said the audit was fraught with many difficulties from the Office of the Premier, which was very reluctant in providing requested information. But she said numerous attempts were made to the Premier's office to gain information on how the unregistered persons qualified for the grant award, but she did not get a response. Listen in.
The information we got from the Agriculture Department indicated that these people were not registered. So the next step is to find out, well, if they're not registered, how did they qualify as farmers? And we asked the Premier's office to send us the information regarding all of the farmers and fishermen, and got no response. So in the end, the most we can say about those individuals is that there's no information to show that they were indeed farmers.
Well, viewers, you heard somewhat of a snippet from that original excerpt, which was basically released earlier this year, Ron. What I would say is that this would have sparked somewhat of a back and forth between the officials, not only the public, but the officials. And a lot of persons were surprised. A lot of persons would have somewhat called out the Premier after, the leaked document, somewhat the information revealed in the Auditor General's report somewhat substantiated the leaked document. Yep. And, it basically would have had the Premier at the point at time and his government on the back foot following those information revealed by the report. Because what she would have also revealed during that period of time is that the office of the Premier would have proved very difficult in terms of getting certain information and stuff. Viewers, according to the Auditor General, an investigation was conducted among a group of farmers, 70, where it was a group of 70 farmers, basically, that it was found that initially they had initially collectively requested for $300,000. But according to the Auditor General Webster, she said that the requested sum was inflated by the Premier's office and the farmers received in excess of $1 million. Webster said that the investigations found a high consistency of no accountability within the stimulus program. Ron, very concerning information, very concerning news, basically. And that was obviously a huge topic. But viewers, due to we are pressed for time, let's move on to our number 3. We go to Julian Willock's Injunction case. Well, on August 18th, Speaker of the House of Assembly, Julian Willock, announced that he was taking the 3 attorneys of the Commission of Inquiry to court on the premise that they were practicing in the territory without being first admitted to the bar. Well, Speaker Willock also filed for an injunction to prevent the 3 attorneys, which included Bilal Rat, Andrew King, and Greer Harrison, from continuing their COI-related duties until a ruling was handed down at the end of the trial, which was originally scheduled for October 2021. Well, all this was revealed during a media conference held on Wednesday, August 18th by the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Well, we won't get to that clip, but viewers, what we would say is that, he would have basically announced his stance in terms of his move to basically pursue that legal action. That at the time was big news, considering that the COI was a big thing, and to see somewhat of a government official, in the capacity of the Speaker, as he said, that's what he would have pursued the measuring. Then to take a direct opposition to the process of the COI. It sparked a lot of questions, but a lot of persons somewhat welcomed it from the standpoint of you're saying that, okay, well, you're doing something illegal and yet you want to police us for stuff that we're doing as well. So a lot of persons were on the side of Willock for taking this stance, but that's not really the problem laid. Well, viewers, after taking this stance, Willock was informed by Justice Adrian Jack, who presided over the case, that he needed the Attorney General approval to pursue the injunction case against the COI's 3 attorneys in September. Willock decided to discontinue his court case, but was ordered by Justice Jack that he would have to pay the legal fees, which initially totaled $432.50, but was later reduced to $104,724.51 after Justice Jack found several discrepancies in the bill submitted by the COI legal team. The legal fees submitted by the Attorney General totaled $6,084, while the bill for the Commissioner, Sir Gary Hickenbottom, and his 3 attorneys totaled $115,348.50. Willock's legal team, Silk Legal, which was represented by Attorney Daniel Davies, they would have made that argument on 2 bases that, he should not have to pay the fees. And the second one was that he's acting on the capacity as a speaker, so he should not have to pay the fees. And the other one would have been that the government would have already been financing his legal bill, so therefore he should not, as a individual, his private capacity, be able to foot that bill. And that's where the problem lied, because a lot of questions then came up where persons were stating, okay, well, if you were acting in the interest of the people, why did you at the first obstacle withdraw? Why not try to persuade the Attorney General to basically give you the necessary approval in the name of justice for the people, in that you're saying that the 3 COI attorneys were not practicing legal in the BVI, then why not take that route? So persons would have questioned his initial stance, his initial intentions following the first hiccup along that journey to basically remove himself from the process and basically discontinue the injunction. But according to Willock, he would have said that he was listening or going on the advice of his attorneys, and that obviously, viewers, was one of the big COI topics coming out this year, 2021.
Of course. Now, in addition to that, as on the matter of COI, we mentioned earlier, Kamal, that the COI really brought to the forefront protocols and measures that the community would not have ordinarily been privy to. It allowed persons in the community to learn quite a bit. But in addition to that, we saw where the Auditor General was perhaps one of the key witnesses in different matters. We also had a former legislator, many of them coming to the forefront. The ESHS wall was a major topic. We saw where the Speaker and the Sir Harry Hickenbottom really went back and forth on a number of issues. Of course, though, one of the biggest matters coming out of that was the whole rapist allegedly being given a status. Now, what really and truly appeared is that the Honorable Minister at the time in speaking was not prepared. and it presented a negative image where persons felt as though this actually happened, when in fact it did not happen.
Indeed, and we would have seen the Attorney General basically responding to that official document, something you don't usually really see the Attorney General do, and she would have obviously had to clear the air following that damaging information, how it was relayed, because as she was stating, the minister was not prepared for any such questions and basically was just trying in his best interest to help out the situation,
but gave
at the time,
wrong
but
information.
gave the wrong information at that point in time. But she did clear the whole misunderstanding from his end. And viewers, we have a quick look. We have a quick look at that. We have a clip where a package was done on the Attorney General, basically addressing that issue.
The letter specifically addressed the oral examination of Minister Vincent Wheatley during his COI hearing on Tuesday, September 28th, which revealed sensitive information regarding the approval of belongership status to a previously convicted rapist. But this letter was attached in a media release from the Attorney General's chambers, which denounced such claims that the VIP government did approve any such belongership status to a convicted person. What the AG chamber said, and I quote, "Well, no application for belonger status was granted by the Cabinet in the two cases it discussed in November 2019, nor since. Indeed, in one of the two cases, the discussion was about a person whose belonger status was granted long ago and years before a subsequent conviction for a serious offense." End quote. Well, in the letter addressed to Sir Hickenbottom, A.G. Smith described the conduct of the hearing as wholly avoidable, creating a misleading impression of the true situation and damaging to the public interest. Well, she said, and I quote, "I say avoidable because the matter appears to have been raised in a manner that not only violated your own protocols and essential assurances on which confidential government documents are disclosed to you, but also prevented the minister from being able to present the facts of a matter that was bound to be of acute public concern." End quote. Well, A.G. Smith also criticized the COI's team for disclosing confidential content from the Cabinet's minutes without first seeking permission of consent from the Cabinet, a protocol she said was agreed to by the COI, which she said was breached. Well, she said, and I quote, "Well, the minute is a Cabinet document which attracts Cabinet confidentiality under the vital public interest and constitutional principle of collective ministerial responsibility. Well, those I represent disclose the minute voluntarily to the COI team alone on an expressly confidential basis and in the reliance of the assurances given in the COI protocols of the safeguard provided by the two-stage disclosure process. At various times during the inquiry, the Cabinet has provided consent for otherwise confidential documents to be used at public hearings. However, at no stage between its disclosure on 16 March 2021 and the hearing on 28 September 2021 did the Cabinet give such consent in relation to the minute." End quote. The Attorney General also highlighted that the Solicitor General was not given the time to verify if whether consent was given to disclose Cabinet minutes to the public, and she also said that Counsel Bilal Roa neither drew to the Commissioner's attention that such privilege was not granted by Cabinet. The AG said, and I quote, "Well, she was not afforded the opportunity to make submissions on whether on balance the public interest in public disclosure outweighed Cabinet confidentiality or even provided with a copy of the minute. I would be most grateful if you would confirm whether a decision was made to use the confidential minute at a public hearing without first discussing it with the IRU or whether the unauthorized use was accidental." End quote. Well, A.G. Smith also emphasized the damaging nature of the hearing to the minister and his government, which he said mainly resulted from the failure of the COI to brief the minister on the subject matter prior to the hearing date. Well, she said this would have allowed Minister Wheatley to prepare factual information for submission to the COI instead of what resulted, with the minister having no time to fact-check his statements. Well, she said, and I quote, "The lack of notice to me and to the minister as to the use of his confidential Cabinet minute and of the criticisms made in respect of these matters denied him the opportunity to check the facts and remind himself that the individuals had either not been granted belonger status or were not under consideration for belonger status at the time. This means that a false impression has been created, as can be seen in social media posts on this subject, that these persons have indeed been granted belonger status by the current government." End quote. The Attorney General added that these revelations have prejudiced the rights to privacy and administrative fairness of the individuals and victims concerned, which she believes should have been the predictable conclusion of any responsible reflection on the subject matter. What she said being that the BVI is a small, close-knit society, personal references are easily identified, and the resulting uproar will have caused unnecessary, acute, and deep distress to the families of the persons concerned, end quote. Well, A.G. Smith therefore asked for the assurance of the Commissioner and his team not to use or disclose to the public in future hearings information relating to Cabinet papers without first notifying members of Cabinet and gaining their consent.
Well, viewers, you would have heard that particular topic comprehensively explained, where the Attorney General would have basically cleared the air to just show, what really transpired.
Indeed.
Well, viewers, we'll head to a quick commercial break. When we return, we'll head to the topics of COVID-19 related topics. Viewers, stay tuned. You're listening to 284 News.
Brilliant Hands and Minds tutoring services, one-on-one tutorials in math and English, intense homework assistance, academic enrichment, school projects, effective communication and public speaking development, sign language for adults and children on Saturdays only. Registered with the Virgin Islands High School Certificate Program, Brilliant Hands and Minds can help you too. Offering intense curriculum-based training to help you or your loved ones get their high school diploma. It's time to make your family's education a #1 priority. Hurry, space is limited. Brilliant Hands and Minds Learning Center. We are the trained education professionals.
Well, welcome back, viewers. We're now on the topic of COVID-19 related, where the British Virgin Islands on February 4th received some 8,000 AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines, which were procured by the United Kingdom government. John Rankin, governor of the territory, would have, along with the Premier Andrew Foy and Health Minister Carver Malone, Transportation Minister Kai Reimer, would all among a delegation that were there at the airport to collect the vaccines cargo. And that's the reason we would have put it on our list, because, the fact that we would have had access to vaccines where other countries didn't,
Correct.
That would have been a major achievement for the BVI, and one that we would have seen, which basically goes to our next story, where we would have seen a spike, which is critical because, having the vaccine would have allowed us not to be able to go past. Yes, we did in the summer periods, July to August. Basically, we had somewhat of a major spike in COVID-19 cases, where we went to 1,600 cases, which is our other major topic that happened regarding COVID-19. And as a result of having that vaccine, we were able to protect a lot of persons. Therefore, a lot of persons were not, weren't able to basically we weren't caught off guard.
Right.
But there are other countries, as you would know, Ron, that were unprepared. The BVA made the necessary steps. They made the necessary adjustments, and they made put protocols in place basically to have COVID-19 vaccines in the territory.
And residents had a choice whether or not they would partake.
Indeed, and it was not mandatory, as
Correct.
you said. Which leads to our other topic of this COVID-19 subject, which is the unfortunate passing of a lot of persons in the territory. Whereas up until July 2021, the BVI had recorded only one COVID-19 related death, which occurred in 2020. However, with the COVID-19 cases in the BVI rising to unprecedented levels, the BVI for the first time in modern day history witnessed a wave of deaths that rocked the territory. Well, to date, the BVI has a total of 39 persons, 39 related COVID deaths, with 38 occurring this year alone. And first and foremost, we here at 284 Media want to extend our condolences to those families and loved ones and friends, who would have lost ones to persons to COVID-19.
Kamal, the death of the 38 individuals was absolutely devastating to the territory of the Virgin Islands. Of course, we here at CCT and 284 Media lost our colleague, Mr. Charlie DeFreitas, a very, very, very difficult time. There was so much tension, there was so much grief, there was so much sadness in the territory at that time. And I don't think as a territory will ever be the same. Of course, losing again the Barronville family, Clive, Harisia, and Jamal.
That was one of the...
It was painful, and it still is when you put it into perspective.
Yes, I mean, every single death was painful.
Absolutely.
But I think the fact that a whole family was lost in
wiped
a
out.
short space of time, that caught the territory off guard in ways beyond explainable. You know, obviously the family is still grieving today. We do wish them well. We do hope every single one that lost someone, whether it be COVID related or not, because there's still other things that are going on in the territory, cancers, diabetes, non-communicable diseases, etc. So, I mean, it was a really tough year, and that's why even for our list, when we were sitting down and we were basically deciding what we wanted to put on the list, is like there were so many sad things, many,
a lot of painful stories,
so many what people will say are bad things, but that would be the top stories that did happen in 2021. There are good stories that we will get to though. But in terms of the COVID situation, it was just...
definitely changed the trajectory of our territory. But as we continue on, another major issue as it pertains to COVID was the easy shipping and the badge and border protection. Of course, this was a huge story. Many persons not agreeing and not in support of the badges out there. However, on the flip side, you see where a company, Easy Shipping, was essentially, I think, in all honesty, trying to provide a service at a very difficult time. The government was not getting the border protection issue under control, and Easy Shipping, in their defense, really came to the saving grace of the territory. And I think many people don't look at that. It is not easy for you to just give of your time and your employees and your badge to protect your territory. And outside of that, one of the things that we have to look at, had Easy Shipping not done that, while persons might agree or did not agree, it severely impacted and decreased the number of persons that would have tried to enter into the territory illegally. The figure that was provided was some 6 boats were intercepted. However, outside of that, it would and could have been much more, but it served, those badges served, whether you agree with it or not, they served as a huge deterrent in protecting the borders. And I think in all honesty, as we look at the COVID situation, former Governor Augustus Jasper and Michael Matthews were not honest, they were not clear in really putting to the pieces together as it pertains to that particular aspect. The Honorable Premier was blamed for quote-unquote pushing for Easy Shipping to get the contract. Easy Shipping's name as a business was targeted and dragged throughout the local and regional scene. But at the end of the day, a service was needed. The government was not getting it under control. And whether you were in support of it or not, those badges served a very important and pivotal point in protecting the very porous borders at that very difficult time.
Well, while I do agree with some of the stuff you said, it's not easy when a business where you're just trying to provide a service to get dragged through the mud.
Exactly.
No fault of yours.
And I think that story, that side needs to be told. Yeah,
but I think what happened in that particular unfortunate situation was that I would say that the Premier would have dropped the ball in terms of the process of getting Easy Shipping. I think that's what would have been any information released during the COI, where basically would have said that the processes weren't followed according to how they would have followed. So I think that was why, the escalation happened in terms of trying to find out what's the contract between...
And why they were targeted.
Exactly. But when you say A, you still have to say B, because at that point in time, we have to remember that the government of the Virgin Islands was offered assistance from the United Kingdom, which eventually came. I mean, without the Governor Jasper at the time would have came to the Premier to say, okay, well, I'm thinking about bringing the UK vessel here to help patrol. And the Premier said, no, we can police ourselves. And that's what helped created I think that was like a nail in the coffin regarding the conflict
friction,
between...
Absolutely. The
regarding
governor
conflict.
And the police commissioner, yes.
Yeah, and that would have, ended up, Easy Shipping had to pay the price, basically, in terms of the name of the business. Well, viewers, we're done with the topic of...
before we go, we have to close out, of course, COVID-related items. The most recent, of course, Premier and our Deputy Premier contracting COVID closer to the end of the year. We do continue to wish them the utmost. We have not been given an update. We don't know what their present situation is. They do, however, seem to be in good spirits, but we do continue to wish them the very best.
Indeed. So viewers, that's what we have for the COVID-related topics. We'll take a quick commercial break and come back with some refreshing news in tourism to speak on some of the top tourism events that happened here in the BVI this year.
You value traditions. You value music. You value education. Family.
I love you.
Service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Love. life. At Popular, we're committed to you and everything our community values. For the things you value the most, count on us. Popular.
Well, welcome back, viewers. Now we head to some really good news that happened in the BVI this year, where we would have seen COVID-19 initially from the get-go tremendously impacting the tourism industry. But this year we had several different things that happened within the tourism industry that we would say made our top stories. We start basically with the reopening of the seaports. That was a very critical part of the reopening in terms of the revitalization of the tourism industry here in the BVI. As a lot of persons were initially frustrated that there was, for so long, they had to fly in to the Terrence B. Letson International Airport as being able to ferry cross with the sea borders being closed. But since that April, when the reopening of the borders did take place, we would have seen a number of traffic coming in. A lot of taxi persons are feeling good again. You know, they're getting more passengers coming in, more persons coming in and visiting the BVI at a much cheaper cost. And it somewhat would have helped revitalize the economy and have it in the position that it's in presently.
I agree, and reopening the borders did not come easy. Of course, it came with its difficulties, and I think the government did their best. It was delayed, but finally the borders were open. Of course, we have to mention the reinstating of the cruise lines and welcoming cruise ships back to our territory.
That's our number 4, yes, indeed. And as you would have said, the reopening in terms of the return to the cruise vessels in the BVI was a welcoming sight. The Premier would have said, as he and his delegation, which would have included the tourist board and other persons, would have gone to the sea trade meeting basically and lobbied on behalf of the BVI to get more vessels in the territory. And as he would have said, the fact that their presence was there alone, they immediately were told, okay, well, you have this amount of berths guaranteed for the rest of the year into next season, and that would have we would have seen somewhat of the great effect of it, because over the last few weeks, last month or so, last 2 months, we traversing the territory, all you're seeing is a lot of tourists.
Absolutely, and I think that really, I think it brought not only a ray of hope to the BVI community, but it really allowed us to regain our fight, a sense of pride, to know that as tough as COVID is, and as tough it continues to be, there is a bit and a glimmer of hope. But viewers, we're continuing on the reopening, of course, of the Taddy Bay airport on Virgin Gorda. That really signaled a huge turning point for not only Virgin Gorda residents, but the entire British Virgin Islands. It is a pivotal point to have the airport reopened, and we commend the Foy administration for that. Of course, in addition to that, the reopening of Sabre Rock and Bitter End, those were major turning points. And if you have not already done so, we encourage you to check out Sabre Rock and Bitter End. I happened to have lunch there at Sabre the other day, and it was quite a beautiful experience. So we support these businesses.
And what I'll say to that also, Ron, as well, is that the fact that they would have had activity back on the island of sister island of VG,
of course.
What ended up happening, because I had as using my journalist powers, sometimes you have conversations with people in places, maybe off the record at times, but what I was told is that since the activity has resumed on VG, there's less in terms of there's less assistance needed for families in need. So persons are working again, monies is coming in again,
of course, because they're working,
and people are benefiting. So we see somewhat of the good in 2021 in terms of you have to give Jack his jacket, have to give the Premier his credit for the measures he would have made in terms of the protocols he would have put in place, etc.
And the Honourable Minister for Health, Chantal Malone.
Indeed, the honor he should be knighted for his work he would have done so far
throughout COVID. Yes.
Yes, and that in itself, directly impacts the BVI in its entirety, because once one island, once the dependency is relieved from that one island, it leaves room for that the government can then pump funds into the other places that need the money the most.
Indeed. Viewers, we are heading on to sports. Kamal, I know you're a sports fanatic. You love the sports, but we have had some amazing athletes who have done tremendous work, and we are so proud of them. When you think of Kyron McMaster, when you think of Chantal Malone, Miss Phillips, Miss Hodge, Demoy Hodge, Raquel Brathwaite, they have literally continued to do remarkable things and represent us on the Olympic stage to the best of their ability.
So when it comes to sports, what I did is I compiled somewhat of a list because all sporting persons are we couldn't do a list for all of them,
right?
Because there were persons, for example, the VG basketball team did tremendously in the national basketball tournament. In terms of cricket, Cavaliers Club would have won the T10 tournament. They would have done well. But in terms of this list, what I did is I compiled some persons who are making strides not only here in the BVA but internationally as well. And we start basically with the knockout age group team division title winners who would have basically for the first time in 36 years would have won this medal at this prestigious regional tournament, which will be included Othniel Gillins, Tai Charles, Jakaila McMaster, and Asia McMaster. They would have competed in the knockout 11 to 12 boys and 13 to 14 girls team divisions. All came back recently this month, and with their trophies and stuff. I think it was Jakaila Martin who became the first BVA female to win an individual knockout age group championship title in 36 years in the event. That was tremendously. That was tremendous work. And then Othniel Gillins, he would have joined the 2003 winner Dion Blyden in an individual champion. There's so much that happened, especially in this particular event, that these four young athletes need to be commended because they're following in the footsteps now of Kyron and Chantal and Ashley Kelly.
Yes, of course.
And Elaine Phillips and Eldred Henry and those persons. So it's good to see that these young athletes are basically, and you have to commend the BVA Athletic Association and the BVA Olympic Committee for their management and ensuring that these athletes during COVID are able to travel and compete at the highest level when it comes to sports in the BVI.
In addition to sports viewers and Kamal, we have to mention the BVI Football Association. Throughout 2021, they have done remarkable work. They have traveled. They have really solidified and tried their best to take the sport of football from the grassroots level straight up to making sure that students are trained in school. They have extracurricular activities. But not only that, it gives them an opportunity to really explore the sport to a heart. So when we are in sports, we got to remember the Football Association.
Indeed. Well, I have here my next person up here is Miss Adeja Hodge.
Yes.
You just heard her name just ringing on the athletic arena for the number of accomplishments and accolades she continued to build at such a young age, being the number 4 on the all-time BVI women's 400-meter list. Adeja Hodge is just a name to remember. And we talk about Chantal Malone, we talk about Ashley Kelly, but Adeja Hodge, trust me, I believe she will be representing the BVA when it comes to Olympics in the near future.
Absolutely amazing.
So now we turn to another athlete. This time we have Recoy Brathwaite. Recoy Brathwaite, we have a clip here to show basically with Recoy. He is a force to be reckoned with.
Indeed.
And as I said, he is going to be a sprinting legend in the BVA going forward if he continues with the mindset he has. And I also have to mention Jaleel Crowell as well. Yes. That youngster, he is one to also look out for. Yeah. So we just take a quick look at the clips here from Recoy recent races this year.
Brathwaite in Indiana.
Viewers, you would have seen Recoy Brathwaite. We also had a clip of Adeja, viewers, but just because we're pressed for time, we're just trying to get through to ensure that we get through to this list as much as possible. But next on our list is Mr. Demoy Hodge. Young talent. His mom is always his biggest cheerleader on social media. Demoy basically would have helped his team, Cleveland State Vikings, beat Oakland early this year. That was in March, 80-69 for the Horizon Conference League title, as they improved 19-7 overall, and they advanced to their first NCAA tournament in 12 years and third in program history. To me, Des Moines is one to look out as a potential candidate for the NBA drafts, and once he continues that discipline and that hard work that he continues to do and he excels in, he is going to make the BVI extremely proud. He's already making them proud, but he's going to make them even more proud. And also for those young athletes, that are young basketball players, that, you know, in the territory, he gives them somewhat of hope and motivation that, okay, well, I have someone running around here in my village, in my community, and he makes the NBA, well, I can do it as well.
Absolutely.
And he's going to set the precedence for that as well.
And I think that's really what these athletes are representing, a generation of greatness, and they're setting the precedence and allowing those who are coming up behind them to realize and understand that it is possible. Indeed.
Now, what I would have done, I would have compiled this one in terms of embodying Elena Phillips as well as Chantal and Chiron in the top major events that happened in sporting this year. Obviously, the Olympics is the biggest sporting arena for athletics in the world. You know, not everyone can be an Olympian, and Elena Phillips, Chantal, and Chiron can all boast of being Olympians. You would have seen Elena setting a new national record at the Olympic Games in the 50-meter freestyle event after finishing second in her heat, but she just missed out on the semifinals. But nonetheless, it was somewhat of a very commendable and performance on her end. And a national record is no cakewalk. You know, even though she may not have made it to the finals, she still did it extremely well. And that takes me to Miss Chantal Malone. Chantal Malone was one of the first BVI Islanders, BVI athletes, basically, to make it to a final of the Olympics. She would have made it to the final in the after leaping 6.50 meters. It was below her semi-final jump, but nonetheless, it would have been enough to qualify for the final. But she finished 12th in the women's long jump final overall, but she still made it be very proud because she finished 4th overall in the year 2021 with the 4th longest jump of the year 2021 in the world.
Yes.
So that speaks magnitude, that speaks volume, and we want to obviously continue to wish Malone and all the other athletes related to for well. And then we have Mr. McMaster, Chiron McMaster. He was the second BVI national athlete to make it to the final in the history of Olympics. And he would have ran the fastest ever 400-meter race. McMaster's time was 47.08 seconds. To put that into perspective, Ron, that time was superbly quick. That time, this particular race that McMaster would have ran, where Norway's Karsten Warholm, he would have broke his own world record, not even an Olympic record. He broke his own world record, running the fastest time of sub 47 seconds. That's, as Chiron would have said, speaking that 3-4 years ago, people would have been, are you crazy?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
That's not possible. Chiron almost ran the sub 47 second mark, but he did well. He ran the 4th fastest time ever in the history of the world, basically, and he would have topped my list for local athletes here in the PVA in terms of sports. But viewers, despite we may not have mentioned a few names, we just wanted to highlight. We did not want to leave sports off the program, because usually sports is always put on the back burner, and only when persons are achieve a particular feat is when people usually then jump around to basically recognize them. But we wanted to end our list basically on the scene of sports. Viewers,
before we go, Kamal, when we talk about sports, we have to remember and mention the one and only local Virgin Islander from the 6th Electoral District, Miss Joyce Chichi Maduru. She was inducted into the Maryland soft pitch Hall of Fame. Quite an accomplishment for a Virgin
Indeed.
Islander. She is actually still playing, still fit, and still gets on the field and wins matches. So of course we have to represent and shout out Miss Chichi Maduro, Joyce Chichi Maduro, for her amazing accomplishment of being inducted into the Maryland Soft Pitch Hall of Fame.
And before we end, we also have to, there's another top story that happened this year regarding from the medical field.
Of course.
From the Bougainvillean Clinic, we would have seen the first open heart surgery being conducted here in the territory. That would be an honorable mention in terms of top stories that happened, where we continue to see great stuff going on at that facility.
We have to say kudos to Dr. Hesketh Vantabul and his entire team at Bougainvillea for really changing lives and really reinventing and bringing to the BVI the best in medical service. That is perhaps one of the most amazing stories. The patient was able to really celebrate her birthday and be in good health. So we want to say kudos to them for that. Viewers, we have gotten to the end of our news year in review here at 284 Media. We thank you so much, first of all, for sticking with us. Most importantly, we thank you for your support, your patronage, all our partners, our stakeholders, all the persons that make this happen. We are so proud and so happy to be bringing you history in the making. It has been one heck of a year, but we have made it through, and we're so happy that you are still here with us. Of course, we want to encourage you to enjoy, be safe, enjoy your Old Year's night,
New Year's holidays,
New Year's Eve, as
safe.
some call it. Be safe. Please practice the social distancing,
Wear your
as
masks.
everyone has been pushing, because we are seeing, of course, a spike in COVID cases here in the BVI. And as we go into 2022, we really want to make sure that we're doing our very best.
And also, as we go into 2022, viewers, we want to be able to bring you some new dynamics. You know, we have so much in store for you guys.
Absolutely.
in the calendar year, where we will be transforming how we view news in the BVI. So much in store. So we want to thank you, as my colleague said, for your support thus far throughout the years. And we will continue to obviously bring you the most, the latest news, the most accurate news. You know, we will basically be bringing and some new content as well. We want to try to cover some new areas to ensure that, you know, we keep you, the viewers, you know, updated in all aspects. We want to be the go-to. You know, we want to be your Facebook to some extent, you know, where you click on the app and then you can do so many things on it or whatever the case is. So when it comes to news, we are going to be, you know, we have to speak it in existence. We are going to be the go-to, where basically you will log on our site, basically, and be able to access regional, local, and international of the latest news going forward, and also sports as well going forward, viewers. Well, my name is Kamal Haynes, viewers. That's our year in review. I want to thank you so much for joining us and joining me and my colleague here today. We hope that you enjoyed our list. If you had other opinions, you can just leave it in the comment section, basically, and just let us know your list of the top stories you believe happened in the year 2021 that we probably would have missed, viewers.
All right, and I'm Ron Grant. We thank you so much. Make sure to enjoy yourselves. Have a happy Thursday. We'll see you next year. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year's.